but also some heat. Not only heat, but humidity. It's been very oppressive in many places, and those overnights I know have been very hot. You can see some of those heat-related advisories in effect from basically the southern plains all the way out towards the east coast. And this is where we'll have one more day. Remember, I mentioned about midweek, we still have that heat wave coming through, but then after that, temperatures will start to change. So 90s all across from Virginia Beach all the way into Boston, and these temperatures feeling more like the upper 90s or triple digits with all that the high humidity out there. And we'll get some cool air, as you can see here, swooping down across the Midwest over the next but over the next few days, that cool air will start to spread a little more. And so instead of 90s, we'll start to get some 80s starting Thursday there. Temperatures hot and humid as well in Texas with some low to upper 90s, but then feeling more like the triple digits again in Austin, in Dallas, in Houston, just about everywhere there, even out towards Louisiana, New Orleans at 100 degrees with the heat index there. Forecast highs for California for now. There was a little bit of monsoon moisture, which adds to the humidity, and we'll see that firing up a little bit come Thursday and then Friday and into the weekend. Phoenix goes to about 111, Palm Springs at 109. So a ridge of high pressure in control again, even out west. This will start to move to the west just a little bit more. And that will not only bring back the chance for some thunderstorms across places like Southern California, but it's also going to cause those temperatures to go back up. Now, it's not going to be as hot as about a week ago or last weekend, but it's certainly still a warming trend for Southern California if you're going to be heading out that way. In the meantime, let's first start off in Columbus, Ohio, where those temperatures have been below average and will be all the way through about Friday. Saturday, we go to average, which is about the mid-80s there, and then we'll hover there and we're very close to average for Sunday, Monday, and then below again on Tuesday. Now let's go to Portland, Oregon, where it has been above average, even some triple digits to Saturday, but it will be above average and then closer to average as we go into the second half of the week into next week. Los Angeles, we're looking at temperatures in the low 80s. It's been right around average, feeling like it typically does around this time of year. We start to warm up a little bit more. Saturday, we go to about the upper 80s, and we stay very close to that range pretty much all the way into early next week.
Our coverage continues at the 2024 Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Former Republican presidential candidates Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley are among the highly anticipated speakers tonight. The day is set to feature speeches focused on increasing border security, tackling the fentanyl crisis, and decreasing violent crime. Former President Donald Trump and running mate J.D. Vance will battleground state of Michigan. News of the rally comes less than a day after Trump announced Vance as his vice president pick. But where does the Ohio senator stand on key issues surrounding the election? Spectrum's Harry Lee is in Washington with the answers.
From opposing aid to Ukraine to refusing to accept Joe Biden's victory in the last election, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is aligned with Donald Trump on issue after issue. Trump's selection of Vance as his running mate cements the party's populist, America First direction that began when Trump became the GOP nominee 8 years ago. Senator J.D. Vance breaks with traditional Republicans on several key issues, notably foreign policy. Going against years of conservative support for free trade and international alliances, Vance also favors hiking tariffs on imports to boost domestic manufacturing, and he has been the loudest Senate critic of giving more aid to Ukraine, though he emphasizes he does not support Russia.
I've never spoken of Vladimir Putin. I'm entering the country of Russia. Thanks to Vladimir Putin. I have no affection for the guy, and I don't think that he should have invaded Ukraine, but I'm focused on America and on America's problems, and it is not in this country's best interest to continue to escalate a conflict that could lead to World War III.
Vance has hedged on whether he would accept the results of the 2024 election if Trump loses. He has said he would not have certified the 2020 election had he been vice president.
If I had been vice president, I would have told the states like Pennsylvania, Georgia, and so many others that we needed to have multiple slates of electors, and I think the U.S. Congress should have fought over it from there.
Vance opposes abortion rights, including in cases of incest or rape, but supports exceptions when the mother's life is in danger. Mirroring Trump and a majority of Americans, he opposes a national abortion ban, saying the issue should be left up to states. Vance also is a hardliner on immigration. In the Senate, he voted against a bipartisan border security bill that...
We don't want to buy more plane tickets to fly illegal immigrants into the 48 continental United States. We want to create real border security to stop people from coming in illegally. illegally in the first place.
8 years ago, Vance was a never-Trumper, but he has since aligned himself with Trump's views. With his selection as Trump's running mate, many now see Vance as the heir apparent to Trump's MAGA movement. In Washington, Harry Lee, Spectrum News.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Thanks for watching. Our coverage continues of the Republican National Convention right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart.
Good evening, I'm Errol Lewis. You are watching Spectrum News coverage of the Republican National Convention. Former presidential candidate Nikki Haley, who was once a fierce critic of former President Donald Trump, is now addressing the delegates. Let's listen in.
President Trump asked me to speak to this convention in the name of unity. It was a gracious invitation, and I was happy to accept. I'll start by making one thing perfectly clear. Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period. Our country is at a critical moment. We have a choice to make. For more than a year, I said a vote for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. After seeing the debate, everyone knows it's true. If we have 4 more years of Biden or a single day of Harris, our country will be badly worse off. For the sake of our nation, we have to go with Donald Trump. But there's more to it than that. We should acknowledge that there are some Americans who don't agree with Donald Trump 100% of the time. I happen to know some of them. And I want to speak to them tonight. My message to them is simple. You don't have to agree with Trump 100% of the time to vote for him. Take it from me, I haven't always agreed with President Trump. But we agree more often than we disagree. We agree on keeping America strong. We agree on keeping America safe. And we agree that Democrats have moved so far to the left that they're putting our freedoms in danger. I'm here tonight because we have a country to save. And a unified Republican Party is essential for saving her. For those who have some doubts about President Trump, I want to tell you a few things about the commander-in-chief I know and worked with. As ambassador to the United Nations, I had a front row seat to his national security policies. We sure could use those again. Think about it. When Barack Obama was president, Vladimir Putin invaded Crimea. With Joe Biden as president, Putin invaded all of Ukraine. But when Donald Trump was president, Putin did nothing. No invasions. No invasions, no wars. That was no accident. Putin didn't attack Ukraine because he knew Donald Trump was tough. A strong president doesn't start wars. A strong president prevents wars. Then look at the Middle East. Every problem in that part of the world can be laid at the feet of Iran. The dictators who chant death to America are the bankrollers and weapons suppliers for Hamas and Hezbollah. They're behind the barbaric massacres and the hostage-taking. Once again, compare Trump and Biden. Trump got us out of the insane Iran nuclear deal. He imposed the toughest sanctions ever on Iran. And he eliminated the arch-terrorist Qasem Soleimani. Iran was too weak to start any wars. They knew Trump meant business, and they were afraid. And then there's Joe Biden. He lifted the sanctions. He begged them to get back into the nuclear deal. He surrendered in Afghanistan. He sent every possible sign of weakness. Even now, while Hamas is still holding Americans hostage, Biden is pressuring Israel instead of the terrorists. Between Israel and Hamas, Donald Trump is clear about who is our friend and who is our enemy. It's the single biggest threat Americans face. Under Joe Biden, migrants are coming into our country by the thousands every day. We have no idea who they are, where they end up, or what they plan to do. And let me remind you, Kamala had one job, and that was to fix the border. Now imagine her in charge of the entire country. Under Donald Trump, we didn't have the border disaster we have today, and we won't when he is president again. I was proud to serve America in President Trump's cabinet, and I'll tell you something you won't hear from the critics. He appreciated advice and input. Americans were well served by his presidency, even if they didn't agree with him on all things. Now, fellow Republicans, we must not only be a unified party, we must also expand our party. We are so much better when we are bigger. We are stronger when we welcome people into our party who have different backgrounds and experiences. And right now, we need to be strong to save America. This is a defining moment, not only for our party, but for our country. Americans are fearful right now. Families are suffering from inflation and wages that don't keep up with prices. Young people are being indoctrinated to think our country is racist and evil. The Jewish community is facing an obscene rise in anti-Semitism. Too many minorities are trapped in communities devastated by crime. Our foreign enemies win when they see Americans hate each other. They see that today, whether it's on college campuses or in a field in Butler, Pennsylvania. But we can conquer those fears with strength and unity. No president can fix all of our problems alone. America has an amazing ability to self-correct. In this moment, we have a chance to put aside our differences and focus on what unites us and strengthens our country. Let us join together as a party. Let us come together as a people, as one country, strong and proud. Let us show our children and the world that even on our worst day, we are blessed to live in America. God bless you. Thank you. God bless the United States of America.
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Nikki
please
Haley
welcome the
addressing the delegates, explaining that she was the convention. She was not originally scheduled to speak, and gave a speech dealing with unity. And next up is another former candidate, and that's Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Let's listen to that.
White House. Life was more affordable when Donald Trump was president. Our border was safer under the Trump administration, and our country was respected when Donald Trump was our commander-in-chief. Joe Biden has failed this nation. As a veteran, I was appalled when 13 of our service members were killed in Afghanistan due to Joe Biden's dereliction of duty. As a citizen, as a husband, and as a father, I am alarmed that lacks the capability to discharge the duties of his office. Our enemies do not confine their designs to between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We need a commander-in-chief who can lead 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. America cannot afford 4 more years of a weekend at Bernie's presidency. But let's be honest here. Biden is just a figurehead. He's a tool for imposing a leftist agenda on the American people. They support open borders, allowing millions and millions of illegal aliens to pour into our country and to burden our communities, but just don't send any to Martha. They have unleashed progressive prosecutors across our nation who care more about coddling criminals than about protecting their own communities. They use the unelected bureaucracy to impose their will on us without our consent, and they weaponize political power to target their political opponents like they've done to our own nominee. They want to ban gas automobiles, eliminate Second Amendment rights, and impose gender ideology on everyone from our infantrymen to kindergartners. They stand for DEI, which really means division, exclusion, and indoctrination, and it is wrong. They mandated that you show proof of a COVID vaccine to go to a restaurant, but they oppose requiring proof of citizenship to cast a vote. They can't even define what a woman is. Now, Donald Trump stands in their way, and he stands up for America. Donald Trump has been demonized. He's been sued. He's been prosecuted, and he nearly lost his life. We cannot let him down, and we cannot let America down. It is the values of this Republican Party that reflect our nation's founding. I believe schools should educate, not indoctrinate. We stand for parents' rights, including universal school choice. We support law and order, not rioting and disorder. We seek a strong, focused United States military, not one distracted by a social agenda. We reject entrenched political class, and we demand term limits for members of Congress. We stand for fiscal sanity, for low taxes, and for reduced debt. We seek to reclaim the constitutional government as envisioned by our founding fathers by bringing the administrative state to heel once and for all. We believe that you must be a citizen in order to vote, and that photo ID should be required before casting a ballot. We stand for strong borders and believe that our nation must have a shared civic culture, and we oppose any immigration that stands apart or in contrast to our American values. We believe in the principles articulated in the Declaration of Independence that our rights come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of the Almighty, including the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, none of this is easy, but it can be done. For decades, my home state saw elections determined. Today, due to bold leadership, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. The left is in retreat. Freedom reigns supreme. The woke mind virus is dead, and Florida is a solid Republican state. Now, electing Donald Trump gives us the chance to do this all across America. And we have a responsibility to step up and make it happen. We have a responsibility to preserve what George Washington called the sacred fire of liberty. This was a fire that burned in Independence Hall in 1776 when 56 men pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to establish this nation. It's a fire that burned at a cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. President pledged this nation to a new birth of freedom. It's a fire that burned at the foot of the Berlin Wall in 1987 when our nation's 40th president stood in front of that wall and said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." This is not a responsibility we should fear. It's a responsibility we should welcome. After all, if not us, who? And if not now, when? Let's make the 45th President of the United States the 47th President of the United States. Let's elect Republicans up and down the ballot, and let's heed the call of our party's nominee to fight, fight, fight for these united. Let's win in November. Thank you so much.
Governor Ron DeSantis addressing the convention. We've got a lot more speakers who will be coming up in the next hour. For now, let's try and sort out what we just heard. Joining me now is Spectrum News political anchor Holly Gregory out of Tampa. And Holly, what did you make of Nikki Haley's speech?
Well, how much she came out, forcefully saying, I give my full and strong endorsement to Donald Trump, period. She said, take it from me, you don't have to 100% of the time agree with him to endorse him and to support him, because we can't afford another 4 years of Joe Biden. I thought it was a very forceful speech. I was really struck by Governor DeSantis coming out just now. And what I thought about him was he came out with Navy military lawyer attack dog mode. We don't want another weekend at Bernie's presidency against Biden. That was actually what put DeSantis on Trump's radar initially, was back in the Russia investigation years. DeSantis was on Fox News every night defending Trump. Trump called him up. They became friendly. He offered his endorsement for governor, and the rest is history there. But we know that DeSantis had to fight very hard to get that spot. He didn't lock it down until just recently, and we had some reporting on how this all happened. You might recall there was a debate when the primary was still going on, and DeSantis made a comment about how he thought it was so weak that so many Republicans would criticize Trump and then they'd end up down at Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. Well, back in April, DeSantis, shortly after dropping out of the race, made that pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago, and there were some mutual Florida Republican friends in that meeting. At one point, DeSantis and Trump, and a little bit leaked out to those mutual friends and to us about what was said. And DeSantis, pledged his support. He said he would start fundraising. He would help in any way to get Trump elected. But then and there, in that moment of quote unquote kissing the ring, he told Trump he wanted this spot to speak at the RNC. And Trump didn't commit to that. And from that point on, back in April, those mutual Republican friends have been trying to negotiate this for DeSantis to get out on stage. And as I said, it was just in the last week, 2 weeks that he was able to secure it. And the reason he wants that so badly, Errol, you might think, oh, well, it's just, 5 minutes and it's over and it's done. It shows I'm still here. I'm still a force. I'm still part of the party. And he had to fight to get back on that stage.
And 2028 will be here before you know it. All right, Let me bring in the rest of the panel. We've got Spectrum News anchor and chief national political reporter Josh Robin, as well as national political reporter Taylor Popolars, and I see Tim Boyum there from North Carolina. And Tim, give me your impression of the speech we heard from Nikki Haley.
Yeah, what's interesting, I think it's everything that Donald Trump wanted it to be, right? I mean, she came out and just gave this full endorsement. And him personally asking her, we were talking about this earlier tonight. I was really curious how this all came about and why she decided to come. Turns out Donald Trump asked her. I still think the question is, will this change anybody's mind that was in her camp? Were they going to vote for Donald Trump anyways, or was it a protest vote and they may not change their mind? What was interesting about what we saw there is I kind of thought that maybe should have been the 10 o'clock hour. Those were real fiery speeches. Ron DeSantis, a lot of red meat in his speech as well. And this is not to take away from Laura Trump, who is part of the Trump family, and so I know her very well. But that, to me, seemed like the whole unifying and trying to get people to rally when most of the people across America are probably going to be watching this. It seemed like that might have been a better moment in the 10 o'clock hour than what we'll see. But we'll wait and see.
Yeah, very good point. Now, Josh Robin, what do you make of this? The former president bringing out two of what had been his fiercest critics and rivals, and made sure he was there in the arena to see them as they endorsed him tonight.
Oh, he really relished it. I think for him there was nothing better to seeing people who criticized him so sharply, especially Haley, now come and endorse him so vigorously. I agree there with Tim, by the way. I wonder why this wasn't in the 10 o'clock hour, and if Trump wanted to still kind of stick it to them a little bit because they were so sharp against them. I think that both of these speakers, particularly Haley, could be very effective for the kind of people who Trump needs. Haley, individuals are going to be swayed, but if it's in the 10 o'clock hour, there's a greater chance. That's number one. And number two is DeSantis coming out and being so red meat about it. that also could be effective of unifying the party. But I think that the Haley speech is particularly effective for those people who Trump needs to bring over to his camp, who are just put off by him for his divisiveness and so on, and issues for so long. One other quick note, and I'm sure we'll talk about this within the 10 o'clock hour. Look, national political conventions are not really a time of nuanced and a lot of rational debate, but there was a lot here that just kind of painted things in an often erroneous brush, or offered a lot of things that were factually inaccurate. We'll continue to go over that as time goes on. The takeaway here, I thought, from those speeches in particular, is that not only did Joe Biden fail, but is the one in charge. That was, it seemed to be, particularly from Haley, the chief knock against Biden. Errol?
Yeah, indeed. And Taylor Popolars, this was something we heard on the campaign trail earlier this year in the Republican primary season. Nikki Haley saying, my real opponent is Kamala Harris.
Yeah, that's right. And it's honestly pretty stunning hearing both Haley and DeSantis tonight, Errol, because I attended multiple campaign events that both of them held in Iowa and New Hampshire throughout the whole lengths of their campaigns. And you couldn't have found two people more harshly critical of Donald Trump, how he left office, how he's acted over the last couple of years, and how they felt he had kind of misguided the Republican Party. And Nikki Haley was, in many ways, kind of ahead of the game, as Democrats are now so concerned about Joe Biden's age and ability. She consistently spoke about Vice President Kamala Harris and viewed her as kind of a bigger threat for the future of the Democratic Party. It really is just a big transformation, and I think it just goes to show that over the last couple of weeks, momentum has really shifted in Donald Trump's favor, because you've had Biden with that horrible debate performance, and then you had Trump survive this assassination attempt, and now you have his two harshest critics, his toughest rivals from the last few months, coming here and essentially pledging allegiance to him and saying to the entire party, many voters who I spoke with in those early battleground states who were exhausted by Trump, who were frustrated by the chaos that has always surrounded him, who were concerned about his legal troubles, now the people, the candidates that they were backing, are saying, hey, let's all come together. No matter how bad all that was that we described, Trump, in our opinion, is better than Joe Biden. It really is just a dramatic kind of change in course, and it goes to show that over a decade later, after Donald Trump disrupted the whole Republican Party, he is still firmly in control, and these kind of leaders in waiting are now kind of back in line.
As far as the Taylor, they weren't necessarily on target as far as what was supposed to be the themes of the night. I guess they did get to border issues and immigration from time to time, but for the most part, they were kind of broad attacks on the current administration.
Yeah, and I believe it was Tim earlier who was talking about, oh, this should have been the next hour of speakers as kind of the official primetime audience. But I think this was the block that was dedicated to showing party unity, and that's something that Trump campaign advisors have told me was really the goal tonight and over the course of this week, especially in wake of the shooting on Saturday. Again, people have to remember, Nikki Haley was not set to be here. She was only invited and accepted after that shooting on Saturday, so that drastically changed the course of things. All the other speakers we heard today did speak a lot about the border, about crime in cities, even though government data shows that those rates are dropping right now. But this hour particularly, I think, was to show that Donald Trump is...
And there was that interesting moment when the mayor of Dallas got up and said he represents the largest Republican-run city in the country. I had not realized that he was going to be speaking. He, of course, was a Democrat who became a Republican. So they've got a lot of different flavors of people who are finding their way to Trump's Republican Party. So thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Holly. And thank you, Josh. We're going to take a very short break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes at 10 p.m. Eastern for more comprehensive coverage of the Republican National Convention. Stay with us.
The family's visit to the forest inspired a beautiful question. Mother, mother, am I a tree? You tell me to stand tall. You tell me to stay rooted. I think I am a tree. My child, of course you are. But what kind of tree will you be? The kind to hug or the kind to climb? Doesn't matter which you choose, so long as you choose to be a tree that's kind.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Running a small business means running marketing and sales and inventory and customer service and handling pretty much every single thing that comes up, ever. All-in-one small business owners need all-in-one connectivity to make it all work. Spectrum Business is made to work for small business. Get one advanced solution for the lowest price with Spectrum One for Business. Fast, reliable internet, free advanced line, all for only $49.99 per month. You're doing it all and can trust that Spectrum Business has your back with ultra-fast internet and over 99.9% network reliability. Plus, advanced Wi-Fi with Security Shield to provide 24/7 cyber protection. And get a free mobile line to stay connected all the time. Get Spectrum One for Business. One advanced solution with all the connectivity your small business needs for the lowest price. Only $49.99 per month. Call 855-581-6858 today. Spectrum Business. Made to work.
You are loved. You are valued. You are resilient. You got this.
We're here for you. Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving.
Good evening, I'm Errol Lewis, and you are watching Spectrum News coverage of the Republican National Convention. It is 10 p.m. on the East Coast, it is 7 on the West Coast, and 9 p.m. at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Today's theme at the Republican National Convention is Make America Safe Once Again. We're going to be hearing from a number of speakers tonight. We're going to air most of them for you. Arkansas former HUD Secretary Ben Carson, Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who was on the short list to possibly be one of Donald Trump's running mates, and Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law of Donald Trump and co-chair of the Republican National Committee, will be the keynote. Now, the former president arrived at the arena about an hour ago. Not to his usual Lee Greenwood, God bless the USA. He waved to the crowd, he greeted his family and supporters, and then he joined his running mate in the suite. Senator J.D. Vance arrived just minutes before Trump, walked through the crowd, shaking hands, greeting the delegates, a very popular man there in Milwaukee tonight. And in the last hour, two of Trump's former opponents addressed the convention. Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina and once a fierce critic, is now fully behind the former president.
Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
We also heard from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who was often criticized by Donald Trump during the presidential campaign, also here to endorse his former opponent.
Our enemies do not confine their designs to between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We need a commander-in-chief who can lead 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. America cannot afford 4 more years of a weekend at Bernie's presidency.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz also spoke about the theme of the night, which is Make America Safe Once Again. He specifically referred to some crimes committed by some migrants.
Think of Laken Riley. Just 22 years old, a nursing student with dreams of healing others. She went for her, came home. Her life taken by someone who should have never been here.
Okay, let's head to the floor of the convention. Our Rena Diamante is there talking with delegates. And Rena, what are they saying about the speeches that they've heard so far?
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. I, in particular, was standing alongside the New Hampshire delegation. We know that this was a state that Haley campaigned really hard to win. In fact, she did win 9 delegates, and I was interested to see what they had to say. I saw a group of them get up to listen to her speech. They got up closer to the podium to listen to her. I want to bring in one of those delegates, State Senator Bill Gannon of New Hampshire. Good to talk with you, sir. I wanted to get your reaction to the South Carolina governor's speech.
Together the problems we have. We have an incoherent foreign policy under Joe Biden. Trump is very clear on everything. There's never a question on immigration. He will secure the border. Right now we have probably 11.5 million illegals have come here. They haven't been vetted. It costs $461 billion to our country. So we can't afford those. We're putting homeless veterans out on the street in Massachusetts, the state below us. They just spent $1 billion that they don't have in Massachusetts. So in New Hampshire, we've been trying to keep it out. We've banned sanctuary cities. We've had policies to keep illegals not getting driver's licenses. So it isn't that we welcome legal immigration, and we can, America can assimilate people who apply legally and come as they're needed and as we can, they can fill roles in the United States.
I do want to ask about Governor Haley. You were talking with me earlier about how you were so intense, but now it sounds like you're all behind former President Trump.
I think she's going to have a role in this administration. I think Donald Trump, as you saw in his vice president, went with a Yale law person. Trump himself is a Wharton School of Business. He can recognize talent. He recognized Nikki Haley before, made her UN ambassador. We've had so much talent up here on the stage tonight. He saw Nikki Haley, he saw the crowd react to her, and he's going to recognize her talent. And I'm sure, be it a cabinet level position, she will have a role helping steer America's course. He recognizes talent again, and she has it, and he sees that, and so they will. She was almost named vice president yesterday. So
you were in the thick of this primary battle, obviously earlier this year. But I think people will sort of look to the comments that she made during that primary season, look to the comments she made in the wake of January 6th. Why would people say, well, why is she changing her mind?
So in the heat of battle, Donald Trump said, I was real mad at him one time when he called it, bird brain and all these. He is a New York tough street fighter, which we need right now. We need someone who's going to lead the country, who's tough, ready, rumble. Nikki Haley compliments him so well. She'll do a great job if she's in his administration. So yes, Jerry, I've had 12 primaries. Every time it's the day after the election, neither side's really happy with each other. But at the end of the day, the Republican position is over here, and the failed policies of Joe Biden are over here. America wants simple things. We want girls playing girls' sports. We want to close the border. Our nation right now, we really could be prospering. We don't have to spend the money we're spending on food, clothing, and shelter if we have a natural gas reserve in Pennsylvania. If you had a pipeline, which the president can do, to the Northeast, we can't get it through New York. And the president can force something like that through. It'll cut our energy prices in half, lower all our costs in New England. So under Donald Trump, we're going to get that. Nikki Haley compliments him. I think she'll be part of this administration yet.
Thank you so much, Bill Gannon, state senator from New Hampshire. Thanks for chatting with us. So there you have it. Here was a very devoted Haley supporter who now is all in for former President Donald Trump. And it's really speaking to this message of unity that we've been hearing throughout the entire Republican National Convention, especially in the wake of the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Errol.
Thank you very much. Great work, Rena. Let me bring in the rest of our panel. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Popolars is with us. Anchor and chief national political reporter Josh Robin is with us. They're both live at the convention. Political anchor Jason Fechner is right outside the arena at our Milwaukee bureau. We've also got political anchors Tim Boyum in North Carolina. And Holly, a majority of Americans agree, it seems, that there's a border problem. What we've heard a lot about tonight is this idea of mass deportations, which presumably might get a different response.
You might presume that because it sounds so harsh. Mass deportations, what does that mean? What does that look like? But there was a recent CBS News poll that even shocked the pollsters that showed 62% of Americans, not Republicans, Americans who were polled, Republicans and Democrats, 62% agree with mass deportations. Axios did a recent poll within the month on the same issue, and they found that half, including 42% of Democrats, believe in mass deportations. But back to that question of what would that look like? We don't exactly know, but Trump has said what the first round of this, he said it would be for people who are in the country illegally, who have contact, who enter into, who commit some sort of a crime and have, contact with law enforcement, with the criminal justice system. So how it works, or how it used to work, is if you get arrested, you're not here legally, the local law enforcement who has arrested you puts an ICE detainer on you, meaning that ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is to come and get that person and get them out of the country, or adjudicate their situation through ICE. If you are a sanctuary city or a state, you explicitly say, we're not going to do that. We're not going to let the federal government deport people. Here in Florida, under Governor DeSantis, we sort of did the opposite of sanctuary cities. He put out the order, or the directive, to local law enforcement to say, if you have someone who commits a crime, to worse, if you have a contact with law enforcement and that person's in your system, you need to put an ICE detainer on them. Well, we heard from our local law enforcement in our area here in Central Florida that they were putting these ICE detainers on, and ICE was just ignoring them. Nothing was happening. So there is already a system in place, or there should be a system in place. There has been a system in place. Once you are in the system of the criminal justice system, you are to go to ICE and be deported. And Trump has said that is where we would begin, with deporting the people who come through the system, and we have them now. They're going to ICE, they're getting deported. That would be the first round of this, Errol.
Okay, very interesting. Let me go to you, Alex Cohen. I'm reminded that, I guess, a generation ago, a very tough immigration policy was proposed by a Republican governor, and it's sort of a political backlash in a lot of ways. How do you think a mass deportation proposal would play in California?
It's a great question, Errol. Everybody thinks of California as this big blue state, and yes, it may be that now. However, we were also the place where Ronald Reagan, who later became president, started off as governor. And after him in the mid-90s, there was a very tough stance on immigration that a former governor ran and was able to win on. And this really unleashed a huge backlash among Latinos here in the state, and it really started the political career. Many of the people who are national names today, U.S. Senator Alex Padilla, Health and Human Services Secretary Javier Becerra. What's interesting to note, though, is that the GOP was lost in California in many ways over immigration in the 90s. What has happened in who exactly is a Latino in this country? You might recall former President Donald Trump launched this group, Latino Americans for Trump. And if you actually dive into the demographics right now, many of the Latinos who are voting age today were people who were born in this country and have a very big disconnect from the political history here. And a lot of folks, much like the delegate that we heard Rena talking to on the floor tonight, might be Latino themselves and absolutely want just as tough, if not tougher, immigration policies than what Donald Trump is calling for. So it'll be very interesting to see, a lot of people make certain assumptions about Latino voters that might have held true in the past. Today, however, it's a much more complicated and nuanced story than it has been in the past due to trends in immigration and who was born here. Yeah,
it is interesting. I'm very Americans are maybe hearing these proposals for the first time. I mean, we've talked so much about the assassination attempt and the ins and outs of the primary process and what's going on with the Democrats and President Biden. These actual proposals are now being, debated, endorsed, and will, in fact, be a policy that American voters will have to choose come November. I want you to stand by, Alex. Let's go back to the floor. And Rena, I understand you've got a delegate there from California.
But we can change this. Yes, I do. I'm chatting with Mr. Walter Allen, who's a city council member of the city of Covina. Thank you so much for joining with me today. I first just want to ask you about some of the changes that former President Trump lobbied for as it relates to getting all those delegates in the big state of California. Do you feel like that?
Very much so. Well, I think there's a larger, broad group of women and minorities out of California that are in this delegation, and I think the changes made some good progress for California Republicans.
What was your reaction to hearing some of those primary challengers of former President Trump, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley? What did you make of those speeches?
Excellent, particularly Nikki Haley. Bringing even more unity to the party was important, and to have her speak to her delegates, not just to the delegates here tonight, but speak to the people that supported her and ask them to join President Trump.
And I do want to ask about the theme of this evening, and Make America Safe Again. How do you feel like that resonates with so many Californians in this big Democratic state?
It resonates with me because I've been in law enforcement for the last 48 years, and I am a big advocate for public safety. One of the big issues we have in California is that we do have an open border at our southern border of California. Unlike some of the states that have fortified their borders, we have not done that in California. So I'm hoping that his return to the White House will help us work with California to get the borders closed from a federal standpoint, because the state of California is not doing anything.
Republicans will be able to gather enough votes to potentially go for Trump. You know, we know the history of this Democratic-led state.
You're talking about in California? Well, we're going to try to.
How do you
open up borders to him?
Well, one of the primary things we're doing is getting more seats for the House, Congress, and that's one of our major efforts. But you never know what's going to happen. He's making some inroads in a lot of the swing states. We're just going to make a concerted effort in California to get as many votes from everyone, not just Republicans, but independents and Democrats that want California safe and want the country to be safer.
Thank you so much, Walter Allen, City Council member from the city of Covina. Really great talking with you. So you just heard it there, just speaking to the efforts of former President Trump to change those delegate counts, get as many Republicans out there to vote in California. Certainly it's a state that's been led by Democrats. Errol.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Rena. Let me go to Jason Fechner. We've heard a lot of numbers passed around about the number of people who have entered the country or are here illegally. We've heard 11 million. I think somebody was saying 20 million. Help us sort out what's real and what's exaggeration there.
Errol, Senator Ted Cruz earlier tonight said 11.5 million people now since Biden took office. That will date back to February of 2021, his first full month in office. Customs and Border Protection basically saying that there have been 9.6 million migrant encounters since then, and another 1.7 million migrants who've evaded them. So that's kind of where that 11.5 million number. Of those 9.6 million encounters along the border, a number of those could have been multiple times, and many often are. Also, President Joe Biden has turned away or deported 4 million of that. So clearly, we're still in the millions when it comes to people who have been able to get into this country undocumented or illegal. But when it comes to President Joe Biden, clearly this is an issue for America. This has been an issue for his administration, and that's why he put that asylum order into place recently. Now, the Biden administration clearly can tout the new numbers that have come out over the last 24 hours and show that these crossings are down dramatically. Republicans, though, can come right back to him and say, well, if they're down dramatically now, why didn't you take this action earlier in your presidency to bring these numbers down even farther? Fascinating to kind of track the talking points as this night goes on.
Yeah, that's a phenomenon I've noticed in recent weeks and months, Jason. I don't know what you've seen, but is both cited by both sides. by one side as evidence that they're doing a good job by stopping people, and the other as evidence that the problem's out of control because there's all of these contacts.
And Errol, we see it in a number of issues, of course, out there. Let's talk about gas prices, of course. Gas prices have dropped down recently. When you talk to Republicans, including here in Wisconsin, it comes up all the time about how high gas prices have climbed during the Biden administration. And back when Donald Trump was president, gas was down at $2 a gallon or whatever the mark was. But obviously that was during the pandemic when gas prices across the country plummeted because people weren't going anywhere. And that part of the story never gets factored into things. So you've got a lot of give and take on the numbers. You've got that on the economy. You've got it tonight, especially behind me here at Fiserv Forum when it comes to immigration and the crime stats that are out there. And it's all in the eye of the political beholder, which numbers you kind of believe comes to who you're going to back, obviously, going forward to November, Errol.
Okay, yeah, the same fact can be subject to different interpretations. Thank you for that, Jason. We've got some speeches that are coming up, and we're going to bring those to you live. I wanted to check in real quick, though, with Alex Cohen for just a minute. You made note, I noticed, of who's not at this convention.
Absolutely. You know, tonight we've heard from so many of Donald Trump's former opponents, folks like Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and you can just feel all the love and adoration in that room. And yet, let us not forget, there are a number of really prominent, respected Republicans who are not there tonight, who are not necessarily on board with Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. Folks like Chris Christie, who just penned an op-ed in the New York Times today, holding fast to that notion Donald Trump is not the right person for this moment. Mitt Romney was very critical of the Vice Vance, former President George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, former Vice President, and let's not forget, on a night where the theme is Make America Safe Again, where you have folks talking about support of law enforcement. What about law enforcement on January 6th? What about Mike Pence, who many believe his life was in danger on that day? He was just posting pictures today on social media. He is currently vacationing in Montana. I think it's no surprise to anybody that he is not there tonight in Milwaukee. But I think it's important to remember who is not in the room where it happens, to quote Hamilton, as much as the folks who are.
Of somebody like Chris Christie, who wrote an article about essentially why he's not there, why he's not on board. Was it about the prospect of the ticket maybe not doing well? Because nothing out of Trump's critics used to say is that, well, he's going to take us to defeat if this is our nominee. I don't think that's part of the argument anymore, is it?
No, and I think it's just, you know, this is a message that has been brewing now for really years, ever since the 2016 election, of Republicans who see him as dangerous, who see him as selfish. Many use the word a narcissist. Many believe he's only in it for himself, who say he's saying one thing but is actually planning another. I think the real question is, Errol, will anybody listen to that message anymore? I mean, Chris Christie didn't get very far with it when he was running for president. And at this point, with all of the chatter that's going on and the continued focus on Joe Biden, whether or not he should still be the nominee, and the recent assassination attempt, I mean, you just have to wonder, is anyone paying attention to those arguments? And what might it take? What would it actually be deciding or figuring things out to change their opinion on Donald Trump? And I think it's a very powerful message here tonight that so many people who have spoken ill of him in the past were some, as Tim mentioned earlier, some of the earlier in the evening speakers, Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis being some of the most fervent in support of him today. I think that will actually carry some voters who might not have been all the way there with Trump just yet.
Okay, thank you for that, Alex. And Josh Robin, building on what Alex was just saying, I mean, J.D. Vance was one of the more prominent and eloquent critics in the past. And so at this point, there's been an ingathering of some of the harshest critics, with a handful, Mike Pence notably, I guess, who are still on the outside.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and the Biden camp and Democrats are trying to use uttered against Trump, and also Vance uttered against Trump against them now. But to me, it seems that the fervor of a convert, if you will, could be very effective to converting other people. And I think that it will. I think that if people buy that Vance is now on the Trump train and that he came around, and same with Haley, then they could come to the same opinions as them. One other note, just to kind of carry on what we've been talking about, is look, there's a lot of very heartbreaking stories being told right now. That's what's going on the floor behind us. People who are family members who are victims of crimes, family members who had kids killed by undocumented immigrants and so on. And it's extremely heartbreaking, and it's very, very effective. At the same time, I think it's important that we just give context a little bit to where things are as to the situation. And Taylor did a little bit before. Encounters at the southern border have gone significantly.
Hey, Josh, let me ask you to...
and we'll
Josh,
send it back to
Josh,
you. We'll
hold
talk
that
about
thought.
this more later.
Joining the convention now is Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let's listen to what she has to say.
I'm Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And before I get started, I want to say I have always been proud to stand with President Trump, but never have I been more proud than to stand with him right now, tonight. Not even could stop him. God Almighty intervened because America is one nation under God, and he is certainly not finished with President Trump. And our country is better for it. I am here tonight as America's youngest governor, the first woman to lead the great state of Arkansas, and most importantly, a mom to 3 amazing kids, Scarlett, Huck, George. When I was President Trump's White House press secretary, the best job, I got the chance to take my 4-year-old son, Huck, to Bring Your Kid to Work Day. Much like Jill now drags Joe to Bring Your Husband to Work Day. And while I was briefing the president on the upcoming event in the Oval Office, all of the kids who were attending that day getting ready to meet him. And we were walking out onto that beautiful, perfect colonnade. And I saw out of the corner of my eye that my son Huck was running full speed directly at the President of the United States. Being the gracious person he is, President Trump bent down to give him a big hug. And right in front of everyone, Huck sidestepped the president, completely ignoring him in front of everyone, and ran straight into my arms. For my 4-year-old son, the most powerful man in the world had nothing on his mom. President Trump didn't mind at all. After all, he's a dad to 5 unbelievable kids and a grandfather to 10. And while that story is certainly a special memory for my family, it's an even greater reminder why I support President Trump, not for me, not for him, but for my kids and for yours. Under President Trump, America was safer, the world was safer, and it felt like the next generation would have a chance at the American dream. President Trump did the job that Joe Biden simply can't. When we're honest, every American knows that we were so much better off under President Trump. So tonight, I don't want to just speak about President Trump's successful policies. While there are many, I want to talk about the man that I know. When the president hired me, I was the first mom and only the third woman to ever serve as the White House press secretary. And in that role, I endured relentless attacks from the left. I was insulted as a guest. My family was denied service and kicked out of a restaurant. And a parent at my 3-year-old son's preschool spit on my car. And in those moments, it was President Trump who defended me. And when an MSNBC host, the author of several books on empowering women, said I was unfit to be a mother, and another MSNBC host said I was vile, not even human, and that I should be choked, MSNBC again did nothing. But our president pulled me aside, looked me in the eye. You're beautiful, you're tough, and they attack you because you're good at your job. Never let them stop fighting. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. That's the Donald Trump that I know. And that's the Donald J. Trump I will always respect. The left doesn't care about empowering women. Biden and Harris can't even tell you what a woman is. They only care about empowering themselves. But we have a president empowering every American and that our country is worth fighting for. For the last 4 years, Republican governors have been leading that fight and doing what Joe Biden refuses to do. We've deployed the National Guard to the border. We've cracked down on crime and drugs. We cut taxes to give hardworking Americans a break from Bidenflation. And we empowered parents with universal school choice across the country. Donald Trump was the very first president in my lifetime to take a hard line against China, and I'm proud to be the first and only governor in the country to get it out of my state. President Trump is a leader, and he's the leader our country needs. And if ever there was a doubt, earlier this week, we saw just how tough, resilient, courageous, and daring this man is, and we can't get him back in the White House fast enough. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not called to stand still in the face of great danger. You and I were put on this earth at a moment in time to charge boldly ahead. We cannot know what the future holds, but we know damn sure who holds the future in his hands. God spared President Trump from that assassin because God is not finished with him yet. He certainly is not finished with America yet either. With God as our guide and President Trump back in the White House, we will show the world that America is the place where freedom reigns and liberty will never die. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, let us not leave here just excited about a great few days, energized and committed to making sure that we protect our freedom and we have the ability to pass it on to the next generation, because America is the greatest country that the world has ever known, and our kids and our grandkids deserve to enjoy it the way each of us did. And we will with President Trump back in the White House. Thank you so much. God bless the great state of Arkansas and the amazing United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former United States Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Ben Carson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Sarah Huckabee always says to me, I hate to follow you. But I think she turned the table on me tonight. I want to thank you all for being here and for being involved. Like many of you last week, I watched with horror as the events unfolded in that Pennsylvania field. I saw President Trump, a dear friend, escape death by mere inches, and my thoughts immediately turned to the book of Isaiah, that says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Well, let me tell you the weapons that they used. First, they tried to ruin his reputation, and he's more popular now than ever. Bankrupt him, and he's got more money now than he had before. And then they tried to put him in prison, and he's freer and has made other people free with him. And then last weekend they tried to kill him, and there he is over there alive and well. You know, I have no doubt that God lowered a shield of protection over President Trump. And I join Thanksgiving for President Trump's safety. And I encourage you to join me in praying each day for his continued protection. You know, our hearts go out to the victims in the audience. Let's also pray for them and their families. These events have brought unusual clarity to the times we are living in. We have all harbored the nagging feeling that everything we love is slipping away. All you have to do is turn on the television. The free press, a pillar of any free society, has abused the public trust and resorted to lies, deception, and disinformation. They divide us along lines of race, class, and gender, rather than uniting us around our shared has been no better, shredding our Constitution and upending the rule of law. We have a wide open border, a broken education system, and chaos breaking out around the world. And on top of it all, we have a president who, well, if you can't say anything good, don't say anything at all. But ask anyone around the world, what does it mean to be an American? Most will tell you that it means unlimited opportunity. That where you begin in life doesn't dictate where you will end. That's the America I grew up in. In no other country could a poor inner city kid raised by a single mom make for president and eventually become a member of the president's cabinet. You know, and as a member of his cabinet, I had a chance to work closely with him. And I got to tell you, this is a man who is a gift to us as a nation. He is very gifted. He is very smart. He is very compassionate. He cares about people. And I'll tell you, the first time I met him, it was before either of us got into the political arena. And we were at Mar-a-Lago, and someone came up to him and said, "Mr. Trump, Rod Stewart just walked in." And he said, "I don't care. This is Ben Carson." But I feel blessed that I've been able to live the American dream. Is moving further out of reach in America today. The lessons my mother taught me, like hard work and the value of well-rounded patriotic education and faith in God above all else, are being forced out of the public square. But we're all here today because we know we can bring these things back. By God's grace, we live in a country where the people rule. We have the power to choose the kind of nation we will be and the kind of men and women that will lead us. And today the choice could not be more clear. The most repeated phrase in the Bible is this: do not be afraid, or fear not. It appears 365 times in Scripture, a reminder to live each day with faith, hope, and joy. And when God is with us, nobody can stand against us. With this assurance from the Almighty, even the face of evil itself cannot shake our resolve. We will keep fighting, we will keep praying, and by the grace of God, we will save our country and re-elect President Trump together with Vice President Vance this November. And I want you to remember this. In 1831, Alexis de Tocqueville came to America to study our nation because the Europeans were fascinated. They wanted to know, how could a nation barely 50 years old already compete with them on virtually every level? So he looked at our government, and he was duly impressed by our checks and balances. And then he looked at our business environment. He was duly impressed by how we encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. And he looked at our educational system, and he was blown away by the fact that he could find a mountain man in the middle of the woods who could read, who could tell him about the Declaration of Independence. But the thing that impressed him the most was when he went to our churches and he heard those inspirational sermons from the pulpits that inspired a ragtag bunch of militiamen to defeat the most powerful army in the world and gave the American people a moral base. And he concluded his 2-volume set, Democracy in America, with these words. He said, "America is great because America is good. And if America ever ceases to be good, she will cease job to make America good. And let's do this by re-electing President Trump so we can make America great." Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Senator of Florida, Marco Rubio.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Don't say polo. Don't say polo. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. The last few days remind us that the life of every living thing is in the hands of God. We were brought to the precipice of the abyss, and by the hand of God, reminded of what truly matters in our lives and in our country. This thing we do called politics, it matters. It's not unimportant, but it is our people who must always matter the most in everything we do. By giving voice to everyday Americans, President Trump has not just transformed our party, he has inspired a movement. A movement of the people who grow our food and drive our trucks, the people who make our cars and build our homes, the people whose taxes fund our government, and whose children fight our wars. Americans like Corey Comparatori. He was a former fire chief and a loving husband. He was described as the best dad a girl could ever ask for. As a man of God who loved Jesus fiercely and looked after members of his church. Corey was one of the millions of everyday Americans who make our country great. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, and the only reason why we know his name is because last Saturday he shielded his wife and daughter from an assassin's bullet and lost his life the way he lived it, a hero. For those still wondering who are in the press and many watching at home, these are the Americans who wear the red hats and wait for hours under a blazing sun to hear Trump speak. And what they want, what they ask for, it is not hate. What they want is good jobs and lower prices. They want borders that are secure, and for those who come here to do so legally. They want to be safe from criminals and from terrorists. And they want for our leaders to care more about our problems here at home than about the problems of other countries far away. There is absolutely nothing dangerous or anything divisive about putting Americans first. Those who are offended, anyone who is offended about putting America first, has forgotten what American is and what American means. American isn't the color of our skin or our ethnicity. Americans are people as diverse as humanity itself. But out of many, we are one. Because as the life story of our next Vice President, J.D. Vance, reminds us, we are all descendants of ordinary people who achieved extraordinary things. Who do we come from? We come from pioneers who ventured west to chase their dreams, and slaves who overcame bondage to claim their right to the promise of America, who fled tyranny in search of freedom, and of immigrants who left behind all they had and knew because they could not be or achieve God's purpose for their life in the nation of their birth. That is an American. And putting Americans first must be what this election is about. When President Trump was in the White House, Americans had more money and lower prices. Our borders were secure and our laws were enforced. Iran was broke, the Taliban stopped killing Americans, and Putin didn't invade anyone. Now, under Biden, high prices devour paychecks. Criminals and drugs are allowed to flood into our country and terrorize our people. And Iran has money to support terrorists. The Taliban humiliated us in Afghanistan, and not one, but two major wars have broken out. My fellow Americans, the only way to make America wealthy and safe and strong again is to make Donald J. Trump our president again. Our country has been injured by the bad decisions of weak leaders. But now, though bloody, we must stand up and we must fight. Fight not with violence or destruction, but with our voices and our votes. Fight not against each other, but for the hopes and dreams we share in common and make us one. And fight for an America where we are safe from those who seek to harm us on our streets and from abroad. And we will not be alone in this fight. For leading us in this fight will be a man who, although wounded and facing danger, he stood up and raised his fist and reminded us that our people and our country are always worth fighting for. It is time to put our country and our people first again. And if we do, together, we will make our people wealthy again. If we do, together we will make our country safe again. Together, we will make Donald Trump our president again. And together, we will not just make America great again. We will make America greater than it has ever been. Thank you. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Laura Trump.
I don't feel like I actually have to ask this question, but is anybody in this room ready to send Donald Trump back to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? Well, it may not be a surprise that I actually had a very different speech that I was prepared to give up here tonight. That all changed at 6/11. Nothing prepares you for a moment like that. Our family has faced our fair share of death threats, mysterious powders sent to our homes, tasteless and violent comments directed towards us on social media, but none of that prepares you as a daughter-in-law to watch in real time someone try to kill a person you love. None of that prepares you as a mother to quickly reach for the remote and turn your young children away from the screen so that they're not witness to something that scars the memory of their grandpa for the rest of their lives. The prayers and well wishes we've received over the last 72 hours have been overwhelming, to say the least. And a father because of this senseless act. All of you here tonight and watching at home mean the world to all of us in the Trump family. If Donald Trump has shown us anything, it's that when it feels impossible to keep going, those are the times we must keep going. I don't know how many people here watching at home have ever been to a Trump rally, but if you've never been, let me tell you about them. Oh, some of you have been. Oh. Regardless of how the media have painted these rallies, you would be hard-pressed to find and to join a happier group of their love for the greatest country on earth, the United States of America. I dare anyone trying to leave a Trump rally without leaving with some new friends. You always make friends at a Trump rally, right? Veterans, teachers, blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, active-duty military, police officers, firefighters, small business owners, Latino supporters, Christian supporters, Jewish supporters, black supporters, white supporters, Asian supporters, gay supporters, Republicans, independents, and yes, even Democrats. At a Trump rally, you're not viewed as your profession, your religion, or the color of your skin. An American. Last Saturday was a jarring reminder that we, as Americans, must always remember. There is more that unites us than divides us. We all want this country to be great, even if we don't always agree on the best way of doing that. And with every bone in my body, I can tell you that all Donald Trump wants to do and has ever wanted to do is make this country great again for all of us. Proverbs 28 reads, "The wicked flee, though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold." And that truly epitomizes Donald Trump. He is a lion. He is bold, he is strong, he is fearless, and he is exactly what this country needs right now. Let's not forget what life actually looked like under President Donald Trump. Trade deals across the world that benefited our economy, allied countries paying their fair share, a safe and secure southern border, record low unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and women, record investment in historically black colleges and universities, the creation of the United States Space Force, the most comprehensive prison reform in decades. How about the peace agreements in the Middle East that they said would never happen? The largest tax cuts in American history, our energy independence, massive amounts of red tape cut, and no new wars when Donald J. Trump was president. Maybe, most importantly though, you could actually feel it in your everyday life. Now, you didn't have to love everything that he tweeted, but you cannot deny you were better off when Donald Trump was in office. Americans were finally able to start saving money. Home prices were affordable, and gas hit a low of $1.87 a gallon. As I speak here tonight, many of our fellow Americans don't know how they'll pay for their next trip to the grocery store, new clothes for their children, or this month's rent. Many of our fellow Americans worry that we are on the verge of a major terror attack here on American soil. Many of our fellow Americans don't think their own children will be able to establish a better life than they themselves currently have. Many of our fellow Americans are right now sitting and wondering how on earth this country could have moved in the wrong direction and so quickly. The Democrats and the media know that they cannot convince you, the American people, that your life is better off now, because it's not. So what will they do? They'll try to sell you on some outrageous narrative about the terrible things that Donald Trump will do if he becomes president. But you don't have to imagine what it would be like. All you have to do is remember what it was like. I know. Oh, yeah. I know what you hear out there about Donald Trump. I know what you read, what the media tells you, and what out-of-touch celebrities on the left say about this man. But when I look at Donald Trump, I see a wonderful father, father-in-law, and of course, grandfather to my two young children, Luke and Carolina. I know that I'm lucky enough to get to call him my father-in-law and see him a little differently than all of you. But it's through that lens that I sometimes wish more people could see him. This is a man who has sacrificed for his family and a man who has truly sacrificed for his country. Donald Trump didn't need to run for president for fame or money. Trust me, we all know he already had plenty of that. I'll tell you why he did it and why he continues on, even in the face of the unthinkable. Because he loves this country. He did it for his grandchildren, for your children and grandchildren, and for the generations to come. I have seen this man dragged through hell and back, in and out of courtrooms, indictments, impeachments, mugshots, and even an assassination attempt. And yet, he has never backed down. I'll never forget watching my two children run up to him with their drawings and hugs for Grandpa, just moments before he took the elevator down in Trump Tower to address the media the day after his wrongful conviction. Despite everything else he had going on, he had no other focus in the entire world. Just a man relishing time with his grandchildren. It's a side of Donald Trump that not enough people get to see. Maybe you got to see a side of Donald Trump on Saturday that you were not sure existed until you saw it with your own eyes. Martin Luther King Jr. once famously said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." There's no doubt that Saturday was one of the most frightening moments of my father-in-law's life. Millimeters separated him from life and certain death. And yet, it was in the midst of it all, as he was jostled off stage by Secret Service, that he knew how defining that moment would be for our country, and he hoisted his fist in the air. It was not just for the audience at the rally, not just for his supporters tuning in, but for all of America, and as a signal to the world that no matter what, America will always prevail. Though it's been strained and attacked, no enemy, no force, not even a bullet is strong enough to break our American grit and our American soul. We are the country whose founders gave their fortunes, freedom, and lives to pursue the dream of a free society. We are the country of Thomas Edison, Susan B. Anthony, Henry Ford, and Harriet Tubman. We are the country who fought and won 2 world wars. And we are the country who always rises to meet the moment, no matter how insurmountable the task. And in that split second, on Saturday, Donald Trump reminded us all of that very history and who we are at our core as a nation. That is the Donald Trump that I know. He is an American who conquered the business world, an American who made himself a household name, an American who was beloved by politicians and fellow celebrities for decades until he ran for office with an R next to his name. An American whom even Barack Obama admits people consider the American dream. And instead of sailing off into the sunset after an illustrious real estate and television career, he decided to give back. He decided to bring some of the things that had made him so successful in life to all of you in order to improve the lives of all Americans. Black, white, brown, gay, straight, all Americans, because that's the man that Donald Trump is. I can tell you that my personal experience with Donald Trump has shown me his heart. There wasn't a second that he made this small-town girl who was way out of her element in New York City feel anything but welcomed and part of the family. And if not for the support and encouragement of my father-in-law, I wouldn't be where I am today. It's been said by many that Donald Trump sees things in people that they don't even recognize in themselves. In 2016, when he asked me to help him win my home state of North Carolina, I'll be honest, I was terrified. I had no idea how I would make it happen, but he knew I would, and I did. When I was given an opportunity to join a television network as a commentator, it was the push and support of my father-in-law that gave me the confidence to take that job. Always the first one to call or text me after a TV hit and tell me, "Great job, keep going." Not bad, right? Or even a few months ago, when he called and asked me to be the co-chair of our party, he showed me potential in myself that I couldn't yet see. So tonight, to my father-in-law, I want to say thank you. Thank you for your resilience. Thank you for continuing on. Thank you for raising wonderful kids. Thank you for being an amazing grandfather. Thank you for never giving up on me. And thank you for never giving up on our country. Tonight, I come to you, not as the co-chair of the RNC, not as the daughter-in-law of the candidate. Tonight, I come to you as a mom and as a citizen of this country. For those of you watching who have never voted for Donald Trump, I know what the media and his political opponents have tried to tell you about this man. Believe me, I have seen and heard it all. But I have also seen the truth. I am proud to know Donald Trump, to campaign for him, to vote for him, and to raise his grandchildren. He will do what is necessary to protect you, protect your family, and protect this country. Because Donald Trump wants us all to be successful, to be safe, to be happy, to be strong, and to be great again. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote, not for the Donald Trump you see flashed on your TV every day, splashed across the headlines. Tonight, I'm asking you to vote for the Donald Trump that Luke and Carolina call Grandpa. I'm asking you to vote for the Donald Trump that my husband Eric calls Dad. I'm asking you to vote for the Donald Trump that I call my father-in-law. I'm asking you to vote for the Donald Trump who can and will make America great once again for all of us. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. We love you. Thank you, guys.
Laura Trump, the co-chair of the Republican National Committee, was in fact the keynote speaker. Just gave a rather long speech talking about Donald Trump as her father-in-law, as a candidate, as somebody who, of course, they're all very excited about supporting. We've got only a few minutes, so let's go straight to Rena Diamante, who's on the floor there in Milwaukee.
Benediction.
Oh, okay, she's going to scramble. Okay, well, we've got the big panel. We've got a lot of commentators with us. Let's start with Taylor Popolars. What did you make of this run of speakers? There was Sarah Huckabee Sanders and then Ben Carson. There was Marco Rubio, and then they finished up with the co-chair of the party.
Yeah, Errol, you know, considering they were calling this this night and theme-wise of making America safe again, there was honestly much more of an emphasis on talking about Donald Trump as a person and humanizing him. And I thought Sarah Huckabee Sanders, his former White House press secretary, currently the governor of Arkansas, the state that her father, Mike Huckabee, served as governor of, you know, she was a standout to me. She kind of represents in so many ways the future of the GOP under Trumpism, just like J.D. Vance does as his running mate now. But she really tried to humanize Trump and talked about him in many similar ways that we just heard from Laura Trump. But she's, of course, Trump's daughter-in-law, so you would hope that she would speak about him fondly in that way. But I thought it was just interesting because while there was, you know, a fair amount of emphasis on policy and Trump's goals if he were to get back into the White House by a lot of the earlier speakers this afternoon and this evening, the last 2 hours really focused on people talking not only about the assassination attempt and Trump's survival of that from this past Saturday, but also who Donald Trump is as a person. And I think making an outreach to any voter who might be watching at home that isn't necessarily plugged into the day-to-day of all of this.
Yeah, very much so. And Holly, that was really quite striking. In the primetime hour, they didn't talk about, you know, abortion, and they didn't really even talk about crime. Some of the complaints that we heard earlier in the night, they knew who they were talking to outside of that convention hall.
Oh, absolutely. And you even heard Laura Trump say, you know, after what happened with the attempted assassination, they all made changes and she scrambled to change her speech. And I think what you're seeing is not only a very united Republican Party, certainly more united than I've ever seen it, particularly under Trump, but also opening the door and extending this to those who might be looking at Biden and saying, okay, I voted for him, but I watched this disastrous debate and now I don't know what to do because I don't want to support Trump. They were opening up the invitation to say, look, in their words, we've been vilified, we've been demonized, we've been, you know, called, MAGA in the pejorative. Here's who we really are. You heard Marco Rubio talk about the man who was killed at that rally goer. He was an American. He was supporting and shielding his family from that bullet. You heard Sarah Huckabee Sanders talk about, look, I had people spit on my car, kick me out of a restaurant. And then you had Laura Trump say, we want, you know, to open the door. She was saying, we want you to know who we really are here and why I'm asking you to support him. He's not what you have been told that he is. So it was beyond just uniting the Republican Party. I feel like they have that, they feel like they have that on lock. They're trying to extend that and to expand that. And what a contrast, really, Errol, to see the united Republican Party here And to know that just 4 months out from an election on the other side, there's still backdoor debate happening. It's quieted down a bit, but we know from reporting today it's still there, of who the candidate is going to be for them. Is it going to be Biden? You could not have more than a contrast on that. And it's getting awfully late in the race to be switching horses if you're on the Democratic Party. In the meantime, you've got Republicans opening the door to those wondering, who am I going to vote for now? So it's a big contrast, and there's still 4 months to go, but I feel like Republicans here feel like the momentum is behind them.
Jason Fechner, the new tone, the unity and so forth, we did see some of the signs. I noticed at least one saying, stop Biden's border bloodbath. So there's still some red meat. They're just kind of, I guess, waiting to serve it up maybe a little bit later in the week. What do you think?
Well, we definitely got a preview of what's to come, I think, through the rest of the week out there. And to kind of reiterate what you've been talking about, yeah, we kind of abandoned crime and immigration issues through the course of the most recent speeches over the last couple of hours. And to a certain degree, I do think we did kind of abandon that unity tone as well. We talked about it a bit throughout the course of Monday, whether or not that unity label was going to really reflect Republicans and Trump supporters, or were they going to reach across the aisle to more Democrats? And you got that to a certain degree, but obviously they were still taking a lot of shots at Democrats, at Joe Biden. And then that term they brought it up with the assassination attempt. Dr. Ben Carson there said they tried to assassinate him, and former President Trump was applauding there in the arena as well. So I don't think we're fully on board with that unity tack yet, or that open invitation to everyone to come on board. Yes, please come on board, please vote for us come November, but it's not a full open door policy for Democrats across the aisle who hadn't supported Trump in the past to suddenly just come and do so with really no backing behind it. The other thing that was interesting that I thought would have possibly come up with the tone on immigration and the topic of immigration, no mention of the wall. $15 billion spent on the wall. That was a huge pillar of Trump's campaign, of course, back in 2016, 458 miles or so built on that. No mention of the wall when it comes to immigration here on this Tuesday.
Okay, I'm getting the 5-minute warning. Tim Boyum, give us your impressions of this evening.
Well, I thought it was an effective night for Donald Trump and his campaign, but I do think there was sort of a missed opportunity. Laura Trump, saying, vote for him because he's this nice guy. He's a great grandpa. I don't think that's going to turn people's minds. The people's minds that they need to change are that they don't like Donald Trump but prefer his policies. And nobody spoke better to that tonight than Ted Cruz, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Marco Rubio, who have said all kinds of things about him in the past. And so I think the power hour with those four might have been more effective if the goal tonight was to get people to change their vote to Donald Trump.
Yeah. Alex Cohen in California, what did you make of tonight's speeches?
I thought that there were some very powerful speeches, of course, from some of the big names that Tim just mentioned, but also people who much of America had never heard of before, the survivors of people who had died of things like fentanyl overdoses and other crimes. And those stories are so incredibly powerful. And sometimes one individual story might stick with the American public even more so than facts. Remember, tonight was supposed to be all about make America safer again. There are some facts which show, I'm just looking here at a libertarian think tank, the Cato Institute, which found that undocumented immigrants were 37% less likely to be convicted of a crime. And yet, who's going to remember that fact when you hear some of those incredibly powerful stories? I think that's what people will likely remember heading into the election. Also, a quick note that these speeches aren't so much about full speeches anymore than the clips that we will all see on social media. They're already showing up tonight. And I think everyone, Democrat and Republican alike, goes into it knowing how is this play on X, on Instagram, on TikTok tomorrow.
Very interesting. Josh Robin, give us your impressions.
Okay, very briefly, Errol, lots of references to God's will saving the former president. I think the talk about God is going to be helpful and alluring for some, off-putting for others. I'd like to talk just very briefly about, look, this is a political convention. I wouldn't expect that everyone is going to stick to the facts and to the nuance that exists in life. But one example here is Laura Trump mentioning that when Donald Trump left office, gasoline was $1.87. It actually was 50 cents higher. We also were in the throes of a pandemic. just one example of the nuance. We'll continue to talk about others in coming days, just to give just some background to all of this and to the liberties that people take when they speak at a political event.
Oh, yeah, look, I'm sure there's a DNC team that's going to give us quite a lot of responses before the sun comes up tomorrow. Well, let's get down on the floor. I think Rena Diamante's got a delegate for us to talk with. Real briefly, we've got a minute and a half, Rena.
Yes, so we are joining us right now is State Representative Alex Rizzo of Hialeah, Florida. We heard from two former Trump rivals, and they're from your state, Senator Marco Rubio and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. What's the message do you think that they send by being here tonight?
Unity, total unity. Our party is united behind one candidate for president. And I can't remember the last time that this happened so quickly, but every single delegate vote went to Donald Trump and to his vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, yesterday.
How much do you think the attempted assassination sort of inspired this unity?
I think that unity was already there. So I think, I think the assassination attempt really has given this convention a tone of almost a sort of a promise for maybe a more peaceful path, or maybe perhaps not one that's so hyperbolic in its rhetoric against, the Democrats, which are the opponent, obviously. I think, but when it comes to the sense of unity, we were already there.
Thank you so much, State Representative Alex Rizzo. Thank you so much for your time. So, Errol, there you have it, the message of unity tonight and throughout the convention.
All right, thanks. As usual, great work, Rena Diamante. Thank you for that. Taylor Popolars and Josh Robin, Jason Fechner and Alex Cohen, Holly Gregory and Tim Boyum, thank you all for your time and your insight tonight. And we thank you at home for watching. I'm Errol Lewis. We've got lots more coverage of the RNC coming up all day tomorrow on Spectrum News. I'll see you back here tomorrow night for night 3 of the RNC. We'll hear from Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance. That's the big speech tomorrow night. Right now, stay tuned for more news here on Spectrum.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our report.